Hi, welcome to Family Law Friday presented by Florida Women's Law Group. My name is Betsy Corbett and I'm in the marketing department. Family Law Friday is designed to be a resource for all women with a family law issue. Today we will be discussing post-nuptial agreements and when you might need one. Before we get started, I wanted to give you some information about our host, Heather Quick. Heather is the founder and owner of Florida Women's Law Group that advocates for women in North Florida. The firm educates and empowers women on the law so that they can find the strength to endure the process and end up better both financially and emotionally. Heather's been a licensed Florida attorney for the last 20 years, with most of her practice being in family law. Please join me in welcoming Heather Quick to Family Law Friday.
Betsy, thank you so much, and thank you all for joining us today. And it's been a while since we've talked about post-nups, but we recently, I'm sure you saw our video on prenups. So this is if you didn't do that, which a lot of people haven't, but, over the years, there have been more opportunities to do a post-nup. And I'm going to explain them because they're, obviously one is pre-nuptials, before you're married, post, after. Really, there is a big distinction because before you get married, you have no, legal rights as you're not married. But so when you enter into the contract, obviously the binding part of it, you have to get married. If you don't get married, it doesn't matter. But you don't have rights that have been assigned to you because you're not married. But as soon as you marry in Florida, you already have rights because you are that person's spouse. And, when you own property, and many advantages that you don't have if you're not married when you own property, and you can own it as a married couple, which protects creditors, also creates a homestead, and prevents or keeps you from having to go through probate if the other party passes away. If your husband doesn't have a will, you are automatically entitled to their full estate if there are no children by prior marriage. It's a certain thing within the law. And even under that law, if your husband does have a will, he can't disinherit you. You're entitled to an absolute amount. Those are just a few of the things, but it really is important because if you are now married and you want to enter into a post-nup, and I'm going to talk about some of the things that might happen to create this thought, and desire to deal with it, or when it might be a good idea. So, but when you're entering into a post-nup, and similar to prenup, this is not you two write out an agreement and sign it. It doesn't work that way. Because now you have rights. And so, under the laws of Florida, and so when you're entering into a post-nup, you have to follow the very specific guidelines as established through the case law in Florida, so that you are aware of, all the assets that exist, the debt, and really what you're doing. So there's a lot more formality, similar to having a will. A lot of formalities in Florida that don't exist in other states. Every state is different. I know you hear me say that all the time, but so true. So you really have to follow the formalities that are required, or it's not going to be upheld. Too many defenses and ways to knock it down. Because just an agreement between the two of you, that's great, but it is not going to trump the law when a divorce is happening. And because there are too many requirements, and you have too many significant rights as a spouse, that unless you're fully aware of what you're waiving or what you're giving away, it's just not going to be upheld. So you're probably watching like, Heather, why in the world would I want to post-nup? Well, I'm going to tell you. So if, like, one example that may happen, okay, you and your spouse have been married a long time, and there's an opportunity, let's say, for one of you to enter into a business venture. Maybe it seems risky, you're not really sure, and your husband's asking you to, Kate, let's invest, a few $100,000 in this, I'm going to run it, and it could be very profitable. But on the downside, it could be very, it could be risky, we could lose all of that. You know, you could use a post-nup in that situation where, hey, listen, this is our money together. If you do this and lose it, like how you're going to be compensated, it's not going to be just gone. In the event of a divorce in the future, he's going to have to, you know, make that right through other assets. Are considering a post-nup, have either read something, watched a video like this that I have done in the past, because there's been something happening in the marriage that causes a mistrust, causes cause for concern about maybe a lawsuit, I don't know, some transactions or some sketchy behavior that, again, caused a rift in the marriage. And so maybe you're going through counseling and you're trying to repair that trust. It could be a financial betrayal. And so within the post-nup, you could maybe rebuild that trust, and it could be infidelity and an affair, emotional, whatever you want to label that affair, and it's an affair that has invaded the trust of the marriage. So the question becomes, women will come many times, are here, but they're like, this is what happened. But despite what has happened, he made a mistake, and I want to work on it, but I want to protect myself. I don't want to be foolish if he's not genuinely working on it. So this is usually something I suggest, and each of you get an attorney or just you and say, this is what I want, this is how I want to protect myself. And we draft a post-nup, and the two of you execute it. Again, more formalities, and there is more disclosure when you're already married, but it honestly can be a tool that can really work to save your marriage and really begin to build that trust. That's the most oftentimes that we've been involved in those. There have been some instances where maybe there was some criminal behavior on one party, and again, that was a violation of trust that you didn't know, and this would be a way to begin to build that trust. A lot of times, when they're not sure which way to go, whether they want to file for divorce or they want to work on it, this can be a really valid thing to do. And it does, then you really have skin in the game. Words are cheap, but hey, you say you're willing to sign this, and in the event we divorce, this is how it'll be. It's going to avoid you a lot of future stress and disagreements at the divorce, but you certainly want it to be done legally. Make sure it's legally sufficient, because if you are at a crossroads on how to repair your marriage and rebuild it, you definitely have to have it done in the right way. I talked about the financial troubles, or some financial behavior that essentially infidelity, but also addiction. We talked about legal trouble, but sometimes with substance abuse, that's just can be so difficult. It really is, because you're so intertwined, and my experience is that you really want to believe, and you do believe them, because you know them when they're sober, what the possibilities are. However, you have no control over whether they're going to stick with it. Is this going to be, is this going to be the last rehab? Are you really going to do it? That might be a good time. Hey, you both have to take responsibility, and I think it allows you to, yourself, be clear on what's required to keep the marriage together, and also hold your husband accountable for the same thing. That's a very difficult road that many people suffer through for years, and this, I think, could really help you in create, being very clear in boundaries and actions and consequences, and help you move forward in that case. because everybody's clear on, hey, if I don't keep my promises and do what I've said I'm going to do, this is how the divorce is going to play out. Not really to punish one person, it's to be clear on this is what we're going to agree to. What if you give up your career? You've got, you have children, and all of a sudden you're like, both of you agree, it's worth considering, because you want to ask your husband, okay, if I give up my big career and am out of the workforce, you continue to make money. What does this look like if you decide you don't want to stay at home mom anymore for your wife? And you want somebody else, and then am I going to suffer financially? So I know it sounds like a hard conversation, but it's a smart conversation to have, because you're looking out really for everyone's interest, and you're taking maybe an opportunity, issue, something that has been troubling in the marriage, and you actually have something that you can use as a tool to build trust and be clear. And then, hey, even with all the best efforts, if it doesn't work, you guys have already negotiated how it's going to play out, which should limit the litigation in the divorce. If it's done correctly, the post-nup will be upheld. If it's not, it may not. So again, if you're going to do it, be serious, do it right. Doing it halfway and doing it yourself isn't going to cut it. And I would recommend you might as well just take your chances if it ends up going to divorce, rather than try to do it yourself and create a mess and have a belief that this is somehow going to work. And it doesn't, again, and it can be stressful, because a lot of times, like I said, the marriage is in trouble. It's in a, transition period, and you're both working at it, and you're not sure, you're not sure if it's gonna go the way you want. But again, this can be a way to say, you know what, while we're both here saying we love each other, we respect each other, we want to work on it, why don't we, out of that place of mutual respect and love for one another, let's just make a decision on how we will divorce, if so. Because that's a very grown-up, mature thing to do. If you have children, it will save them a lot of that animosity potentially that happens with a divorce, because you both agreed this is the way it's going to go, and you were both able to come to terms when you were really working for it. And then if it doesn't work out the way you want, it provides you with a great way to exit the marriage with respect for one another, and hopefully without it being so adversarial. And frankly, the more disputed the divorce is, of course, the more expensive it is for both of you. And at the end of the day, our goal here at Florida Women's Law Group is to help women. And, if this helps you keep your marriage together, I'm all for it. You should do it. You should explore it, because we've talked about that in those videos before. Divorce is challenging, and when you're ready and you've got to do it, you've got to do it. But if you can educate yourself and put yourself in a position to, one, either make it easier, make it a better experience, and make it a little bit more clear cut rather than, I don't know how things will go, why wouldn't you do it? Of course, a post-nup has got to be agreed upon by both of you, but at least you're thinking in terms of, hey, I'm looking out for myself and my family, and I still love you, I'm working on this, but hey, if we decide, listen, we can't make it together anymore, let's decide how we want to leave the marriage, because you decided how you're going to enter it and plan the wedding and, work together throughout this. If you use that line of thinking, it does make sense to exit in the same way. It can be difficult, but when you're on good terms and when you're really working at it, it's a smart thing to do. So if you are in that situation, if this is resonating with you at all, I would ask that you call us here at Florida Women's Law Group and let us talk it through with you and see if this is something that might be an option for you or someone you know or love. You can please forward this video to them And again, you're educating yourself, you're looking at all the options available to you so that you can really, be, in a better place and be a better version of yourself. So thank you so much for watching. I look forward to helping you if you need us.
Thank you so much, Heather, and thank you for everyone that was able to listen today.